Okay. Hello, everybody. I have a very special interview discussion guest. I have Dr. Elizabeth Bright with me, who is a naturopath and an osteopath, and maybe she'll tell you more about her background, but she's an expert on eating in a way that keep us healthy mentally and physically, as well as knowing a lot about women, about weight, about thyroid, and many other things that we will talk about. And we'll cover in our discussion kind of in time, all the way from pregnancy, birth, fertility, babies, and children, uh, and see if we can come to some kind of a conversation that would be helpful to everybody about what is the optimal way to both prepare for pregnancy and pregnancy, as well as feed and care for health-wise our babies and children. Thank you, Elizabeth, for being here. It's a
Thank
delight.
you, Naomi.
And would you like to tell us just a little bit about yourself so that, or maybe I'll start with telling about myself and then please tell about yourself. So, the reason that Dr. Bright and I decided to talk together is that my new book is coming up or came up recently. Listen to Your Baby, my original book that most of you know, Raising Our Children, Raising Ourselves, which is in 20 languages and bestseller. Um, but this one is new and it's until age 6. And Dr. Bright wrote a review on the back, so you can see her words there. And if you're looking for ways to raise babies healthfully and joyfully and calmly without the big stress that we are used to hearing about in raising babies and toddlers and young children, then you want to read this book. And if you want to learn more about health, then definitely Dr. Bright is a source that I highly recommend. So let's hear from you.
Oh, thank you, Naomi. Yeah, I very much liked your book. I think it's very important. I am an osteopath and a naturopath. I've been using, um, shall we say, a low carb to no carb diet as a healing modality for 11 years now. I also am a specialist in hormone function, hormone balancing, thyroid, steroid hormones, which are all what steroid hormones are all made out of cholesterol. So that immediately takes us to a topic of, is cholesterol good or bad? I've written 3 books. Good Fat is Good for Women, Menopause, which explains that menopausal symptoms are not caused by um, menopause, by not bleeding anymore, not having your period anymore. Good Fat is Good for Girls, which I wrote primarily because many of my daughter's friends were on antidepressants, and I did a deep dive into that, adolescence and issues there. And my most recent book, The Power of Your Thyroid and Adrenals. So I actually explain how I treat thyroid and adrenal issues in that book.
That's awesome. And I read two of these books, the two later ones, and learned a lot. And I think that when we discussed about what we will talk about, we didn't talk so much about the adolescence and depression and anxiety and all
Yeah.
that. So let's make sure that we talk about that. It's very important to me. So why don't we start with what do you recommend, and then I can, we can go back and forth in terms of pregnancy, in terms of diet, and go into that.
Okay.
I'm sure it's the same diet that you recommend for everybody, but
Yes,
pregnancy especially.
yes. We know that, well, the surge in progesterone during the first trimester can cause a lot of issues, which we know are blood sugar issues. Progesterone is an immune immune modulator. So progesterone rises in order for your immune system for you not to miscarry, so that your body does not see the fetus as foreign. So that can come with it because when progesterone is high, if you are eating a lot of carbohydrates, you're more likely to have morning sickness because that will cause nausea and the effects. It's really almost a hypoglycemic reaction.
Wow.
So, so I am, that is something I recommend. That's why uh, high fat carnivore, which will balance your blood sugar, uh, regulate your blood sugar, and prevent that surge in blood sugar that happens with in the first trimester with nausea and morning sickness. So I do recommend eating animal fat and primarily animal protein. And the other thing that's really important is thyroid function because pregnancy and iodine for all organs, specifically the ovaries and the uterus, et cetera. If anybody has endometrial issues or has had fertility issues, we can really just scientifically point that all back to low thyroid levels, which really do come from adolescence often because of that is a time when sexual characteristics are being built, and that is a time when females need a lot of iodine, and males need a lot of iodine and thyroid hormone.
So are you saying that what adolescent girls eat determines things that would happen 10, 20 years later?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So on my questionnaire, I'm semi-retired now, but one of the questions is at what age did you menstruate? And the human, humans evolved eating, our brain evolved literally when we started eating animal fat. So we really did not evolve to have 8 to 10 children. That came with agriculture. So we really evolved to have 2 to 3 children, and they were spaced 2 to 3 years apart. Um, so the your fertility when you're building sexual characteristics, that's really what's happening. Your uterus is growing, your ovaries are growing. I'm not even talking about breasts, I'm talking about those organs that are going to be involved in conception. So, and thyroid hormone is crucial for those organs to properly develop.
Wow, that's amazing. Um, I have nothing to say about that. So I'm not going to say about every subject. This is definitely your specialty. Can you say anything? I don't know if it's your subject at all, but birthing itself, which is one of my subjects, but do you have a point of view on how to give birth?
Well, my daughter's on her second pregnancy, because she had a car accident when she was, 18. She kind of had stress issues because of her cortisol levels. So she went hypothyroid during her first pregnancy, which I treated, and then has now she's in her second month. She went hypothyroid again, which we're treating. So, I wrote, having had 3 children myself as an osteopath, there are treatments and ways to uh, reduce, you'd say, the stress on the organs that are being, impacted when you're at the end of your pregnancy. Birthing itself, I don't have a lot of experience with that. I'm sure you have
Yeah,
more.
maybe
Tell us.
I will talk about this. I gave birth at home 3 times at ages 37, 41, and 44.
Hmm.
So that right there tells a lot. My last birth was the best. They became shorter and easier, and it was in the water too.
Hmm.
What impacted me the most when I was looking, when I was ready for my first one at 37, I went for a midwife after reading Dr. Mendelssohn book, Malpractice. It's the word mal with an E in a different color
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
was mostly male.
Yes, the medical male gaze.
Yes, and it was an eye-opening book. I later read his other books, How to Raise a Healthy Child in Spite of Your Doctor, and uh,
Hmm.
Actually, I read first his book. Um, what is it called? I think Confession of Medical Heretic. And he
Mm,
taught in medical school. He was a pediatrician and he taught pediatrics, and he just like told the truth of on conventional medicine and why not to vaccinate, why to, and we don't have to get into that now. But anyway, so his book Malpractice was very clear about what happens in hospital is that the birthing, unless a mother is just giving birth very quickly before they can intervene too much. And
yeah.
even then, what I learned from him, for the convenience of the doctors, the mother is on her back, which is the worst position to give birth
Mm-hmm.
because the whole weight of the baby, the water, the mother is crushing the arteries
Mm-hmm.
are, right underneath,
Mm-hmm.
slowing down the process, not letting gravity work for the mother, and
Mm-hmm.
all other problems starting to come from there. So unless you're really birthing quickly and insisting to right away hold the baby, what
Mm-hmm.
happens in the hospital is problems that are caused by the hospital, starting with the laying on the back and monitoring. And I can go for an hour just about what happens in the hospital. I won't do that now. But when they say to you, we saved your life and gave you this cesarean section, which is
Yeah.
approaching 40% in America,
Yes.
whether it's planned in advance or they have an excuse why the baby was in stress. Well, if the woman squatted, the baby wouldn't be in stress, or
Mm-hmm.
even just stood up or was on four or whatever
Mm-hmm.
position she would naturally do, which is the last thing she would do, even laying down, but on the side and not on the back. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so all these things that they supposedly save you 99% of the time, only I would say 1 or 2% of C-sections are justified. And even those probably with a better diet wouldn't have gotten
Yeah,
there. So that's back
absolutely.
to what you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
But the other 99% that are unnecessary are from things that are done in the hospital, in the birthing process. So when I learned that, I started looking for a midwife, and
Mm-hmm.
she had a questionnaire. One of the questions was, why do you want to do home birth? As if that was the exception or the wrong. And I
Right.
wrote back, where do you want me to birth? In the supermarket? That was my like humorous saying to her, look, a hospital is the least safe place to give birth. Most likely you're going to be robbed off of the experience.
Yeah.
And then, even if everything goes well, the attitude of the hospital is to right away take the baby, cut the cord when there is probably 45 minutes time of the blood from the cord with oxygen and nutrition, all intended for the baby.
Mm-hmm.
Nature doesn't goof. Nature has it right. You don't have to breathe right away. You're born, like one of the reasons they do C-section, they see that the cord is around the neck, but the baby isn't breathing from here.
Right. It's great. Yeah, from the cord.
It's
Yep.
going in the cord, it's like, what's the worry? I had a cord around one of my babies coming out at home. You take it off. You take it
Mm-hmm.
off right away. There's no problem. And even without a cord or after you took it off, the baby doesn't have to breathe right away. Nature gives a cover of at least half hour. Oxygen keeps coming in through the umbilicus cord and through the cord. So it's covered. And yet in the hospital, they cut it off. They waste all that blood full of nutrition. So they start the baby on deprivation and they
Mm-hmm.
give the baby trauma. Because now,
Yeah.
all of a sudden they need
Yeah.
to catch the breath right away. So they turn them upside down and we take that for
Smack them.
granted. The baby
Yeah.
come out and we turn them upside down. No, we
Right.
don't have to. That's called resuscitation,
Mm-hmm.
traumatic experience, unnecessary. So all of that, already made it clear to me I'm going for home birth. This isn't safe. And then, they take a baby away from you and do some drops in the eyes that are unnecessary and some injection for vitamin K, which again, nature purposefully not giving it for very good reasons. So I went for home birth, and my first birth was wonderful, but the midwives were still too medical. They
Hmm.
were telling me to push, not push, directing me too much. Everything was fine, but it was very, very slow. And at 24 hours or so, it went 28 hours. At
Hmm.
20 hours, I was a little desperate, because it was hanging, not coming down. And I
Yeah.
said to the midwife, shouldn't I go to the hospital? And she answered, if you want a C-section, sure.
Mm.
But there is nothing wrong. It takes the time it needs to take.
Yeah.
So again, they tear the water and then say there is infection, to accelerate the tempo, or they give you injection to accelerate all those interventions do so much harm. So I was at home. It took 28 hours, but beautiful baby boy came
Mm.
out, and there was no problem. With the second one, it was only 7 hours. They're naturally shorter each time the body
Yeah.
practices. And the third one, I had a friend midwife, actually a famous woman, Gloria LeMay, for those of you who are into home birthing and you may know her. She got herself in trouble with courts many times fighting for women's right to give birth, and to give birth at home and to give birth naturally. So she came all the way from Canada, and she almost missed the birth, and she knew she would miss the birth, but she goes, this kind of midwife doesn't need machines to tell you at what stage of birth you are. When
Mhm.
she arrived, she said to me, I didn't think I would make it because on the phone, when you called me, you sounded 8 centimeters open. And I was at another birth an hour and a half away from you.
Hmm.
So, she
That's
wasn't
amazing.
sure she'd make it. Yeah, they can tell by the eyes if they're
Yeah.
present. They
Yeah.
can tell by the voice, but she was sure. She was just like thousands of births. She told me you sounded 8 centimeters. So, quite amazing. But she and I have an agreement that my husband and I are giving birth. Like my husband was sitting with me behind me in the water.
Hmm.
The kids were around, the older kids, 3 years old and 7 years old. And we had the agreement that she doesn't touch me. She never tells me to push or not to push unless I'm going to tear. And these midwives are very good at. If they see that I'm ready to push exactly when there is no blood in the perineum, they would tell you to do those small breaths to slow down, to wait for the blood to arrive. It'll
Hmm.
tear if there's no blood there. Most doctors know nothing about these things. But so anyway, I was giving birth without her help. I learned later that she had two mirrors to help herself see what's going on without talking to me and without touching. So she was supposed to be a clearance. The only thing she said when I started getting the head out is, wait, Naomi, the cord is around the neck.
Hmm.
She took the cord out, and the rest of it, continued by itself. The baby comes out, naturally goes to the breast, and naturally breastfeeds right away.
Hmm.
And it's just a birthday party. And in
Well,
this,
that was my experience with my son, my first child. So it was a wonderful experience. I
yeah,
definitely think it's the
it's
best
really,
way.
I would give birth if I was young enough, more and more. I think that's a fabulous experience. Women are afraid of birth because of stories that come from hospitals that are the hospital is fear-based, is going to help, hurt, you're going to, we can give you something to alleviate the pain because it's unbearable. I
Hmm.
also go to the dentist without putting, if they have to drill in or even cut the gums for something. it's less painful than the injection and a lot less poison going into your body. And I taught my kids to do the same. They had no problem, even as children. I mean, they hardly had any cavities, but the few that they had, no shot, no problem. So that's my view on birth is give birth at home. Find a
Mhm.
midwife who is not part of the medical profession. Some of them are ex-nurses who are not much better. It's still better at home. At home or in a birthing center, you're much better off than in a hospital. But check for a midwife who is truly a midwife, intuitive, connected, doesn't use all this ultrasound and stuff, but actually can listen. My
Mhm.
midwife had the old wooden listening thing, and one time she forgot to bring it for the meeting, the monthly meeting. She just put her ear on my belly.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like we don't need all these machines. It's all
No,
money,
they
money
they
making.
yeah, they muddy the waters, they confuse things, they give
Exactly.
us wrong messages often.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it was a delight. And after the baby came out, we didn't cut the cord on any of my birth. But in the third one, my older two came into the water. I had an inflatable tub. We had
Mhm.
music in the background, Bach and Mozart, choral music in all the birth. And my oldest son is the one who cut the cord once it's not pulsating.
Right.
Which
Wow.
in my
Yeah.
case, it was almost an hour before we
Mhm.
said, okay, the cord has done its job, let's get out.
Mhm.
The baby already breastfed, the children were inside. We had a blast. I mean, it was wonderful. A mother once asked me if birthing isn't traumatic for the older child to watch. And my answer was, if it's traumatic for you, it'll be traumatic for them.
Mhm.
But if it's like what I experience, a gathering birthday party with, yeah, groaning and moaning. There's one time in the video of that last birth that my 7 years old, he stood by the tub and his face looked a little worried when I groaned.
Mhm.
And the midwife smiled at him, and you could see the smile coming back and relaxing. So all they need is to know from the adults around that everybody is experiencing this as something wonderful.
Yeah, they need reassurance.
Yes, exactly. And even if something goes wrong, that it's fine. It's part of
Mhm.
life. We're handling something.
Right.
And that has to do with how we raise them, which I work with parents in counseling and in workshops and in my writing to help them raise children who are able to handle you know, variations of comfort or emergencies or ease or dis-ease, and that's really all right. I'd like to ask you about fertility. So,
Yeah.
how is you talk about low carb diet and eating mostly the carnivore diet, which is what I do. But not as many years as you. I learned it. I wish I knew it when my kids were young. Certainly would have been better. But how does the fertility impacted by diet?
Okay, well, so the carnivore diet or the high fat carnivore diet, I recommend high fat. That's how our steroid hormones are all made out of cholesterol. So it's very important to have, if you want to have hormone, if you want to ha regulate your hormones, you have to be eating fat. Otherwise, you're not making them properly. The liver will always produce some cholesterol, but not enough. Um, Inflammation will obviously impact your pregnancy and your fertility, and the carnivore diet is reduces inflammation, primarily because it reduces cortisol. Stimulants raise cortisol levels. Carbohydrate is a stimulant, and cortisol is part of the stress response. So you won't be able to properly regulate the estrogens, the testosterone that's all the way over here on the right side of the cascade if you're always in a stress state. So, we've talked about how important the parasympathetic, being able to switch into the parasympathetic, which is why the birthing in the water is so important because it is very parasympathetic as opposed to sympathetic, where you will be stressed. And fertility, it's just you need hormones. You need hormones and you need steroid hormones and you need um, regulated blood sugar, which all happens by eating enough fat. The meat is basically all the vitamin soluble nutrients. I mean, all the minerals and nutrients are in the meat, the iron, the
And
B's.
the fat has to be animal fat. We're not
That fat
talking
has to be, it
pig
can't be avocado oil. You can't make vitamin D or vitamin A or anything you can only make it out of cholesterol. So all the nutrients are in animal fat and meat.
Yeah, yeah. So, in other words, that explains why some of my vegan clients cannot get pregnant.
Yes, because um, unfortunately, the human body evolved to eat animal meat and animal fat. B12 is, you will have a vegan someone who's avoiding meat or not eating meat, it doesn't matter. B12 is something that they're always talking about folate, but all of the studies that were done started in the 1930s with people who had mothers who had neural tube defects was because they weren't eating meat. And they started giving them liver extract. Lucy Wills did this in India and saw that the mothers no longer had neural tube defects when they were taking liver extract. At that time, they tried to find a cheaper way. She
Yeah,
didn't, but her successors did, and they isolated folic acid from spinach, but it does not, any research paper you look up, if you're looking up folic acid, it's going to say B12/folic acid. Folic
mm,
acid is unnecessary. What you really need is meat, but you can't get iron out of anything. It has to be heme iron, and there isn't a plant that will give you iron.
that will give you that. I'm going to have an interview in a couple of months with Dr. Robert Kiltz.
No, yeah.
Yeah, and he specializes in curing infertility, and he
Mhm.
does that with the carnivore diet, like pure
Right.
carnivore diet. So it'd be a nice follow-up to what we're talking about. What is your take on one phenomena I see with babies today and toddlers that I didn't see when I was young and in my generation, but when my children were young, it was already existing, at least in the United States, is that babies at very young age have allergies,
Yeah.
eczema, all kind of rashes, and get a
Hmm.
lot of colds. When I came to this country, I was like, why are all these children running with colds all the time?
Hmm.
What is going on?
It's the immune system. It's the immune system. So
What
when,
what causes it?
well, I mean, I would say, from the get-go, we have less iodine in our food sources, and iodine is the immune system. Iodine is what boosts your immune system. So it used to be that only mountainous areas were iodine deficient, but nowadays people are eating oat milk and eating oatmeal and eating flax seeds and drinking tea. The areas of China and India that grow tea have the highest rate of congenital hypothyroidism
Oh,
because tea prevents the absorption of iodine because of the fluoride that's in the soil. In the
even
tea.
herbal teas, any tea?
No, I'm talking about tea, the tea plant, black,
Yeah.
green. Plants have very powerful chemicals, but tea plants actually prevent the absorption of iodine, which means that because the fluoride replaces the iodine. So
Including green tea?
yes, green tea, absolutely. Those are tea
Wow.
plants. Now, your immune system has to have adequate levels of iodine for it to be able to f- um, keep away bacteria. And iodine is an antiviral, antiparasitic, and it fights bacteria. It's also a heavy metal chelator. But I've seen, obviously, we know that there's more hypothyroidism today. As the years pass, there's more substances in our environment that prevent the absorption of iodine. And we know that the immune system is affected by cortisol levels. We More and more women are hypothyroid during adolescence, and certainly the rate of women with hypothyroidism that is diagnosed for the first time during pregnancy is skyrocketing, and Hashimoto's and things like that. So why does your immune system obviously protects you from getting a cold, but eczema, psoriasis, and skin issues like that are part of the stress response. So if your immune system is asthma, asthma is a good example. Why do people get asthma? Because your immune system is overreacting to certain air particles where most other people aren't reacting. The skin is the same. It's the largest sympathetic organ in the body. So obviously the skin is our barrier to everything on the outside. So the skin, if the child has, if the mother hasn't had enough iodine, possibly has low thyroid levels, that will cause a stress response in the newborn, and that can make it sensitive to uh, make the skin more reactive, shall we say.
Okay. So I want to add to that there are other, and you probably agree, there are other toxins that babies are exposed to. There are quite a few studies that show the different things. I mean, there's plastic bottles. I mean,
Yeah,
hopefully,
phthalates.
hopefully mothers are breastfeeding, but they give them plastic
Mhm.
cups eventually,
Yeah, yeah,
and plastic plates, those flexible ones, and
yeah.
all kinds of stuff.
Phthalates. Horrible.
And in the cities, there's fluoride in America in the water, there's
Yeah.
chlorine. So, yeah, many parents know to have bottled water, but then it's often in a plastic container. So it's kind of a lose-lose. But another big factor that Dr. Paul Thomas did a study on and published the book Vax Facts.
Hmm.
And there are other studies that show whole societies that the children are not vaccinated do not have that.
Hmm.
So the statistics are very clear that the more that the baby is vaccinated, often right after the vaccine, there are skin rashes, colds, flus, all kinds of things showing up that there is toxins that the body is trying to get
Well,
rid of.
yeah, all vaccines have to have heavy metals as carrier agents.
Yeah.
The older vaccines had one viral trigger. The unfortunately nowadays vaccines have a bundle of viral triggers. What I've seen is I've had young parents come to me weeping because they had to, they were worried about vaccinating their child, and I literally this is what I did when I had to be vaccinated 4 times for COVID because I wanted to see my mother who was ill in Texas coming from Italy. Um, Enough iodine because it's a heavy metal chelator and because it boosts the immune system will mitigate your reaction to that viral trigger and the heavy metal.
That's good to know. Oh my God. If you
Yeah.
absolutely have to take it, have iodine. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
great.
yeah. And
And
more in
yeah.
order to, I took 30 drops of 5% the week before the vaccine and 30 drops the week after I had
And
the
you have
vaccine.
whole videos answering on how to and how much and how to
Yes,
check,
yes, yes.
etc. So I recommend for everybody to look for Dr. Bright's videos on thyroid, on iodine, very, very great education and good to know. So that's really, really interesting. But I want to just add to that again, Paul Thomas, simply his clientele, thousands of people, some of them didn't vaccinate, some of them vaccinated, but partially, and some of them got vaccinated fully. And he shows in charts the difference in sickness,
Hmm.
colds, flus, bronchitis, ear infections, everything. And then later on, even learning disabilities, hyperactivity, it impacts everything.
Yeah.
And he shows the difference between the vaccinated and unvaccinated. To learn more about how the vaccines actually have never been tested appropriately and have no proof for safety and are not what stopped these diseases, and they're not diseases, they're infections. They come
Mhm.
and go. I recommend Dr. Susan Humphrey's book, Dissolving Illusions. Really, really great. And my personal experience, since I grew up in a different country that didn't vaccinate yet
Mhm.
as babies, I'm of the generation that the mothers send the kids to the sick kids home, and the whole class and the whole school would be sick at the same time. I remember my measles, my whooping cough. I remember all these diseases. I didn't vaccinate my kids and made sure that they got whatever diseases were available. Unfortunately, not all of them were available. And
Mhm.
that relates also to the immunity that mothers pass on to the baby.
Hmm.
Important piece of information is a mother who had the disease, unlike
Hmm.
a mother who just got the vaccine, will pass on the immunity to the infant. And
Right.
if
That's
you
why.
breastfeed, it'll continue for about the first year of life, which means, when people say to me, but whooping cough can kill a baby, I said, yeah, but a baby is designed to not get whooping cough because they're supposed to get the immunity from mother. And by the
Right.
fact that we did the vaccination instead of getting the disease, we deprive the baby of having that immunity. So now we're afraid for the baby. It's a vicious cycle. So we
Right.
go and do the injection and we do other harm to the baby.
That's
So
that's another benefit for vaginal, a vaginal birth because all of the proper bacteria is passed through in the vaginal canal.
yes, yes. Yeah, people think that it's harmless to do C-section, but we could do a whole meeting just on birthing, and we're not doing that today. So I'm going to move on. So we talked about babies' allergies. I would like to add breastfeeding. You can go for a few years because a lot of
Mhm.
parents ask me, well, how long do you breastfeed? Because my next question is, what should be the first baby food? And I think you and I agree on that one. But as a doctor, I want you to talk about it first. So yeah, breastfeed and continue breastfeeding. That's the best thing for the baby, and eat well while you breastfeed. Maybe you can address that too. What to eat while breastfeeding, and what is the best first baby food?
All right, so yeah, while breastfeeding, you want to obviously eat meat and have adequate fat because that is what is going to also improve your and have adequate thyroid levels that will improve, uh, ensure your milk flow. Um, But the first food, I mean, if you're eating meat and you have pieces of meat or bones, I mean, my grandson started sucking on bones when, his parents were eating
Yeah.
meat. So that would be, I would say, the ideal human food for the baby to start with. Because you don't even have to have teeth, you just have to suck and gnaw.
Yes. And I've seen that because some of my clients have followed my lead and are giving the baby actually pieces of liver or pieces, just a long piece so they can hold it by hand.
Mhm.
Starting when they have teeth is my theory. When they start having teeth, that tells you the digestive system is ready for something else. But they mostly just suck on it, yes.
Mhm.
So a piece of meat, a piece of liver. Some parents are into the raw carnivore diet. That's more daring in our culture, but if you're into that, that gives them even more nutrition. That easier to digest. But yeah, so we agree. The first solid food, I add to it sometimes egg yolks, and as they become toddlers just giving them egg yolks by the spoon, not cooked because that changes the fat
Yeah.
and it's less useful. What's your opinion on raw milk for baby, especially let's say a mother cannot breastfeed?
Yeah, if the mother cannot breastfeed, I would say obviously A2 milk, so goat milk would be the raw, the pasteurization uh, kills the enzymes, so it doesn't really, there could be issues with caseinomorphins, but I think that it's pretty safe to start with
Yeah.
raw goat milk.
So I have a lot of clients, not a lot because most of my clients do breastfeed, but when they can't breastfeed, sometimes at the beginning they succeed to get another mother's milk.
Yes, that would be ideal.
Yeah, which is the ideal, and then
Right.
move on to raw goat milk from a farmer who is clean and grass-fed, grass-finished. When all the conditions are right, I have seen more E. coli and sickness from pasteurized milk, actually not from raw milk. And I
Yeah.
grew up going to the farmer. They gave us this containers with handles that were still warm milk. I
Mm.
would go with the container and they would milk the cow. It was cow's milk at the time, and into my container, and I take it home, and we just drank it. It was warm and sweet and wonderful. Um, let's talk a little bit about children's health and food, and
Mm.
without being too repetitive, because we're, of course, going to advocate the same for the children, but really how it impacts their development, their stature, mental health, learning, development, and behavior. If we can, give some idea that this is not just benign, just about health, but it's about everything.
Well, mental health is, I mean, you can't cut off the head from the body. So, whatever your brain, whatever we call mental has to do with your entire physiology. We know that cholesterol lowers, people with low cholesterol are anxious and have depression. So having a healthy amount of fat in the diet is always going to help behavioral issues. It'll regulate blood sugar, which is why it works. Irregular blood sugar levels cause anxiety, cause acting out, they cause insecurity, all of that. So, adequate animal fat in the diet is crucial for balance.
Yeah. And Dr. Ed talks, cures people from depression, adults too, with the carnivore diet.
Yeah.
Georgia Ede, she's in
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Boston.
yeah.
Know her?
Sure, sure. I know
Yeah.
her.
Yeah, and she's not the only one. I think she wrote a book. What is it called? He,
Metabolic something. She
no,
just,
no, something
no.
mind and food, heal your body, heal your mind,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
something. I don't remember, but if you write down the name Georgia Ede, those of you listening, Ede is EDE. She's a psychiatrist in Boston, and she has a book, um, something with mind and diet. I don't remember
No,
exactly.
the people, gets people into ketosis. So
Yeah.
you can only make ketones out of animal fat. And
Yeah.
that's
And
why,
and it calms them down and it calms
right.
behavior. In children, the calming down that comes, and the other side of it, when they eat a lot of carbs, they're just all over the place. And
Yes.
also the stature, children, now there are already thousands or tens of thousands. It's just starting off, people who return to the species appropriate diet for children, and they're taller
Hmm.
on the average than definitely vegan, but even people, children who eat both. They're taller, they're calmer, they behave better, the learning is better. So a lot of learning disabilities, etc., could be just change the diet, and the kid would calm down and be able to focus. Although that's a whole other lecture, because I think sitting, especially boys, to sit behind a desk and listen rather than climb trees is a huge mistake, because they learn when they move, and they learn when they do what they're driven to do, not in a sitting position what they are told. That's not optimal for children. But that's a whole different subject that we don't cover today. I really want to take advantage of Dr. Bright's knowledge,
Well, ADHD is associated with low thyroid function. So,
which comes from
you,
the diet. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what's your recommendation? I kind of know what it is, but what do you tell a vegan or a vegetarian parent that want the children to eat like them? I mean, we
Well,
already know it's not even good for them, but uh,
right.
how would you help them sort this out? And
Well, you've said, we've talked about behavior, mental health, and stature. I mean, the sign of a robust growing child is it's growing and it's calm and it's happy. Um, Depression is linked to malnutrition, and malnourishment is not enough nutrients, and that comes from eating things that don't have the nutrients that we evolved to eat. We evolved to eat animal fat. So if we're not giving it to ourselves, that's one thing. But if you do that to your kids, you're not going to have a healthy child.
And I want to add, because a lot of listeners probably know nothing about the carnivore diet, that when Dr. Bright talks about not getting the nutrients, I know a lot of you vegans or vegetarian will say that there is a proof that the spinach does have the nutrients. It has it, doesn't mean your body can assimilate it. And with
Right.
all the toxins that are basically, the toxins are not the pesticides we add. I know most of you buy organic, but it's the pesticides that the plant itself makes to protect itself from being eaten.
Right. Plant chemicals. These
Yeah.
foods are not bioavailable.
And there are
They're
like
not
50 of
bioavailable.
them. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just, it's lectin and phytates, and there's huge,
Basic acid.
yeah. So those actually prevent, not only prevent the assimilation of whatever nutrients are there, which are not always the right ones for humans anyway, but if you eat plant food together with your meat, actually the toxins in the plant food would get in the way of assimilating as much of the proteins and the nutrients that are in the meat.
And the zinc and the magnesium. The spinach is a good example of that.
Yeah, everything. And that reminds me, I really want to talk about the food we feed children and toddlers and children and then teens. Today's doctors, for profit reasons, I'm sure, are told to teach parents how to prevent, it's always a scare tactic, right? How to
Mm.
prevent eating disorders. And they say just take a plate, and they have those flexible plates that are divided,
Yeah,
you
yeah, the
know,
food. Yeah,
and put everything, a cookie in one, and some fruit in the other, a piece of meat here. So they have the meat there, but there's five other things. And give it to the child so they can choose freely. And what I noticed talking to a lot of parents in my work is in the beginning, intuitively, the baby wants the meat, which is nature's design. The baby is ketogenic.
yes,
When he breastfeeds, he's ketogenic, she's ketogenic, and
exactly.
they gravitate toward what's healthy. However, carbs are addictive. So they start tasting from this other stuff, and the parents have this, the doctors tell them through fear that they must eat a little of everything, what's called balanced diet.
Right.
I can't start on this one, it's like mixing foods is exactly what doesn't work. But what
Mhm.
happens with the toddlers, by the time they eat for a while, they stop gravitating toward the meat, and
Mhm.
they go for the cookie, and they go for the muffin, and they go for the tortilla, and for the chips, and for the pasta, in the good case, and then the sugar and the cookie. Uh, and,
Yeah,
and they think that fruit is healthy, but the fruit is, especially today's fruit, has been bred to be 10 times more sugar. They turned fruit into candy. And
right.
I always do the opposite with children. My philosophy is, if you lived in the wild right now with no supermarket, what would you eat? You'd have to hunt, unless you're
Hmm.
in the tropics and you have some tropical fruits for short periods. And you have to share it with everybody. It's never huge quantities. I live
Hmm.
in the north. If I went in the forest here outside my house, other than hunting and maybe some fishing, there's nothing I can get most of the year. For 2 weeks, I have raspberries, not in huge quantities unless I create a field, which is not natural. And the raspberries of today are totally much sweeter than normal. Same with the other berries, the strawberries, the blueberries. Yeah, they have all these nutrients that hardly any of them you can digest because of the toxins. But even if you wanted to eat them once in a while, and I'm all for flexibility sometimes and adding once in a while for a healthy person, okay, you eat a handful of blueberries that you just picked up or got. but we don't get them in boxes that can be eaten like all day. The children are sitting and just eating blueberries or eating raspberries, and that's really not good for them, and they don't grow as tall or as healthy or as able to get all the nutrients that they need. But
Yeah,
what
and
I
they're
recommend,
stimulatory. Sorry,
the
the
what?
fruit, too much fruit is stimulatory because it is a
Oh,
sugar.
terrible. It makes a child more emotional. Then the parents say the child is having a tantrum all the time. So, well, what is he eating?
Right.
And then also parents tell me, my child is hungry all the time. I say, the body will stay hungry until it has enough protein
Hmm.
and fats.
Hmm.
So you give protein, but it's really sad to see how they gravitate then and become carb addicts. So parents ask me the next question, so what do you feed the baby and the toddler and the children and teen? I say with the little ones, I put one item, exactly the opposite of what the doctors say. Don't give
Hmm.
them all these choices. It's too much for them in food, it's too much for them in other things. When parents say, which toy do you want? This or this or this or this, it's like overwhelm.
Right.
Give them something. With toys, maybe one or two of two. But with food, one item or two that are both protein and fat, both healthy that support each other digestion. So an egg and some bacon, an egg and some ground meat. Uh,
Mm.
so it's all supporting each other. A piece of butter. My granddaughter is 2 years old. She loves butter by itself.
Mm. Good.
I love
Yes.
giving it to her, but her mother says she's allergic to dairy. So
Mm.
so we won't go into that, but what you want to do is give a child just one or two same type protein and fats items and let them eat it with their hands. If they want you to feed them, whatever. Flow with their direction, but don't give them all this other stuff that isn't good for them and confuses them and makes them eventually gravitate toward the carbs because the carbs are addictive. And then, oh, my child just wants sugar and candy all the time. No one,
And that turns into other addictions
yeah, exactly.
because the child that hides candy in its pillowcase will eventually have issues with either alcohol or drugs, substance abuse, because these all cause, they're stimulants which cause cortisol and blood sugar issues.
Yeah. So before we finish, I do want to dig into your expertise a little more.
Mm.
So mothers eventually go beyond the childbearing years. And
Mm.
what we see now, at least in America, is that a percentage, not everybody, but a big percentage of women who were skinny, and I was exactly like that until age 50 something, skinny no matter what I eat, become hypothyroid and start gaining weight. And I want to understand not only why that happens and how to solve it, but why, like, yeah, the iodine deficiency could be part of the reason, but there are other women equally deficient in iodine who are not developing this problem. So I wanted
Well,
to,
they may, yeah, go ahead.
yeah.
They
So,
may not
yeah,
develop overweight. They may not be overweight, but they may have all kinds of other problems. Hypothyroidism is every single thing in the body that can go wrong. So we associate aging, or the medicine tells us that aging means we will metabolize less, uh, that, all these things are associated, especially the female body, with degeneration and decay, which isn't true because we evolve. We're the only, you know, humans and orcas have menopause because we live longer. So, why do women in their 50s, I mean, your 50s, you're saying pretty much menopausal, because if somebody has been hypothyroid since they were adolescents or they've had ridiculous amounts of stress, that will impact cortisol levels. Eventually, you will become hypothyroid because your thyroid will be able to produce either it's damaged or it forgets how to properly give you the quantity of hormone you need. So it's an accumulation of damage that you were able to when you were fertile, because, our default mechanism is have babies until we have menopause. And when we no longer are fertile, the default mechanism changes. Your body will no longer compensate and do the best without.
Mhm. That's really useful. And I want on that to encourage everybody to listen to Dr. Bright's videos on how to actually and read her books on how to heal that for women. I really appreciate that. I want to address one more thing briefly, and then whatever final words you want to say. Um, I want to address one other question that parents ask me so much. It's like, okay, I agree with the diet. I want to do it. I can't. They go to school, they're fed this other stuff, and then they ask for it. Relatives, all this stuff. And my answer to that is layered. Because for some people, I have a client in Italy, for example, who is, like the kids have to go to school. They're fed that in school. She's doing the best she can with my guidance to
Yeah.
reduce carbs at home, etc. So we have to realize that even those who are growing up with the mainstream diet are still growing up. There's still many of them thriving without too much trouble. Uh,
Mhm.
uh, yeah, there's a lot of autoimmune diseases, etc., that are connected to the different things we were talking about. But don't be so rigid. Uh, it, with some grandparents, you can teach them. What I did is going to grandparents, I took my own food with, and some
Mhm.
tweaks that I made for the children, like I would make smoothies, I would
Mhm.
make there are all kinds of, you can even make pancakes from eggs, and instead of flour, you use collagen.
Mhm. Mhm.
Processed and all that, it's powder, but it's a good compromise. And if you add to it some glycine powder, again,
Yeah.
powdered, but is amino acid that is
Mhm.
sweet, very much like sugar,
Mhm.
then you didn't really put any carbs in there, and the children love it. I do it for my family when they come with kids, and they totally love it, and the adults love it too. So there's a lot. I want to do a list of recipes right now, but be creative, learn. There is online a lot of carnivore recipes for even making bread, uh,
Mhm.
all kinds of, which are not pure carnivore because they're processed and all that. But hey, we don't need to be rigid. Once in a while, some fruit, well, So my answer is accommodate when you can, bring your own stuff and educate your children. My children used to go with us sometimes shopping, most of the time not. I spared them. I taught them to look at ingredient list. Uh,
Yeah.
and they would tell me, Mom, we can't buy that. It has dextrine, or it has this, or it has that. And they would know. It was really fun. But today I recommend to not eat anything that has a list of ingredients, especially if any of the ingredients are not real food that you would eat by itself. So
Right.
show me, go to a wheat field and pick up wheat and eat it, and send me a photo of you doing that and feeling good after, and enjoying yourself. It's not human food. It's, the cows have four stomachs, the birds have some other system of digestion. We don't have that. We have carnivore digestive system. But whatever you do, yeah, don't be so rigid that it's becoming an issue. It's what you feed them at home, what you eat, the modeling, the experience at home. You make dinner, and there's a piece of meat, and there is some fish, or there's some butter, or tallow, or some, good stuff, yummy stuff, bacon strips, or whatever they love, some fish sticks without flour on them. Again, you can use collagen. It's very handy in that way. You mix it with egg, and you put it as a on the outside of fish, and create fish sticks that are just like the commercial ones, only healthy for a change. So if you have anything to add to that,
Yeah, I think we lead by example, as you said. It's not a religion, it's a way of life, and we do the best we can. Whenever I pick my grandson up from nursery in Scotland, I bring him meat chips, crisps that I've dehydrated, and he loves them. He loves those very much. And so, yeah, if it's too restrictive, I mean, you have to lead by example and
yeah.
everything. I agree with everything you said.
I want to add one little story to end with it because it's cute. When even though we didn't eat carnivore diet then, but we had no sugar and a lot of things were healthier than most people and organic. And when my firstborn was 5 years old, he wanted to take some dance lessons. And when I picked him up from the last class, all the children had ice cream bars in their hands, and he
Hmm.
didn't. And the teacher comes to me very apologetic and very nervous. She said, I want you to know I didn't not give him, but he asked me if there's sugar in it. When I said yes, he said, no, thank you. And a year later, he was sitting, we were in Chicago visiting my husband's parents, and he made friends with a bunch of kids on the street, and
Hmm.
they were sitting and passing on a box of cookies from one to one. He didn't take a cookie, he would pass it on to the next child. Same
Yeah.
thing. And I had other stories like that with him, where
Mhm.
he, from the modeling, from us going in places and saying, no, I don't eat that,
Right.
he just assumed, we're smart people, this is how we do it. And he just refused it. It didn't stay exactly like that once he became teenagers, and the other kids weren't quite like
Yeah.
that. So it's not like every child would be this way, but it does sink in. All my three boys are very oriented toward eating healthy. Do I think that they eat completely healthy? No, but it's much better than most. They
Right.
don't touch real processed junk and stuff. They eat real food, not exactly what I would eat, or not only what I would eat, but I think that modeling is the way of it. And I wanted to know what I forgot to say before is that this new book does have a whole full chapter on health. So a lot of
Mm.
what you heard here is there, which is part of the reason Dr. Bright and I made this meeting, because we have that in common. And Dr. Bright also helped me with my health with thyroid. I learned a lot from her. So do you have anything to add to
Well,
add?
I just want to thank you for your book. I think it's very important to listen to our baby. I really enjoyed it, and I think it's important. I think that I think that we underestimate how destructive toxins and carbohydrates and things in our food supply can be to our health. I think we forget, all we hear about is skyrocketing rates of diabetes, et cetera, et cetera. People are focused on weight loss and new drugs that think that they will make them look good, but we're talking about feeling good. If you are healthy, you will also look uh, look the way your body is supposed to.
Yeah, I'm 76 years old and not ashamed to say it. And I know that people constantly tell me that I look very vibrant. And I hike every week, 7 miles, climbing mountains.
Hmm.
I swim in the ocean, and I'm not in perfect health. I still deal with thyroid issues, but it definitely makes a big difference just eating species appropriate food. So
Absolutely.
I thank you for that. And I also recommend to read Dr. Bright's books. And thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Naomi.